The Dallas Cowboys have their new offensive coordinator. It is Klayton Adams. He is probably not a household name. I wouldn't anticipate a lot of us actively choosing to go out of our ways to watch Cardinals football games. But if you do, great. Maybe you've heard of him. Maybe you haven't. In general, I actually like this hire quite a bit. We'll break down why I think it's a smart hire on today's show. Go in depth on just who Klayton Adams is. If you like this hire, show it by liking today's video for me right now. Couple reasons why I think this is at least a smart process. And the results, we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, can't quite predict that one. But I do like the Cowboys went outside of their bubble for this hire. In general, I think you want a coaching staff that does feature some familiarity, some good relationships between your coaching staff, but also some new ideas. I don't want just a group of the buddies in the same way that you saw to an extent Mike McCarthy's first staff have in Dallas. You also don't want all complete unknowns like the Panthers staff had that was all these big names ended up being a disaster. You want a blend. Bringing in the OC, Klayton Adams, adds some of that. There's plenty of familiarity on some of the offensive staff members. The defensive staff knows each other well. Adams brings some good new ideas. In fact, every single reported interview for the offensive coaching staff was outside the bubble, basically. Ken Dorsey, the former Browns offensive coordinator. Kevin Koger, the Falcons tight end coach. Maybe I missed the news on Scotty Montgomery interviewing, but ESPN and the Cowboys website reported that one there. He actually does have a very limited tie to Klayton Adams, which is kind of funny, but he's been interviewed before. Pretty notable background there for Montgomery as well. All three guys, the focus was on the run game, which we'll get into. First, let's go through just who Adams is from a background perspective. He played center at Boise State. Cowboys got another Boise guy. Go figure. They haven't actually done that very much lately, by the way. Second team All-WAC center in 2004. He actually walked on to Boise from the JUCO ranks, was an undersized center who kind of made his way to that level, and then very quickly became a coach. He was a grad assistant at Boise State under Dan Hawkins and Chris Peterson, by the way, as the OC. From 2005 to 2006, he was the Western Washington run game coordinator. Yeah, that's a deep cut right there. Then goes over to Sacramento State, was the offensive tackles coach, tight ends coach, line coach. Continues to work his way up the ranks in the collegiate level. San Jose's tight end coach. Follows Mike McIntyre to Colorado, where he was the running backs coach, the tight ends coach, the O-line coach for several years. Was the co-offensive coordinator in 2018 before, moving on then. Takes the Colts assistant offensive line job. His first jump into the NFL coaching ranks was the tight ends coach for 2 years, and then got to be the offensive line coach in Arizona. So kind of a similar NFL path as current tight end coach Lundo Wells, who's done offensive line and tight ends coach. Now, in his kind of coaching tree branches, now this, of course, going upward, not branching out from him, but guys he's worked under over the course of his NFL and collegiate careers. He's got heavy ties to Pat Shurmur with some of the early stuff. Chris Peterson, I think, did some really fun stuff on offense for Boise early in his career, beyond just all the crazy trick play stuff. Frank Reich, Nick Sirianni. And then I think most notably and most impactfully was the Kevin Stefanski branch that also comes via really Drew Petzing. It's Adams to Petzing to Stefanski in that order. And a lot of the run game concepts that Arizona used under Petzing, that it certainly sounds like Adams was heavily involved in, kind of come from that Stefanski background. And you want to connect Stefanski, it connects to Kubiak and Shanahan systems. So you've got some more of those types of offensive designs that on the ground I am a big fan of. More to come, specifically on the run game. But grade the hire of Klayton Adams. A, B, C, D, or F. Go vote the pinned comment of today's show. I think the biggest thing you're getting here, at least you're hoping to get here, is a running game boost. That was a very clear focal point for this Cowboys organization with the OC search. And you can look at what Arizona did, and I think be pretty darn impressed. They were 7th in yards per game, 2nd in yards per carry, 7th in EPA per carry, 4th in explosive runs, how often they were stuffed, negative gains, no gains. They were top 10, 9th in success rate. They were 2nd in yards before contact. Only 13th, though, in yards after contact. So, in general, when I see good before contact numbers versus after contact numbers, it makes me think your schematics are good. Not always the case, but I think you can tie those things together. We'll come back to the inside-outside runs. But the Cardinals' running game ranked at times significantly higher than the Dallas Cowboys in everything but stuff rate. And that was a 0.2% difference, so very minimal there. Cowboys' run game overall last year, even though it got better down the stretch with Rico Dowdle, and they were pretty good in yards after contact, they were actually very similar in yards after contact between the Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking like a half yard difference. Or sorry, not even a full half yard. It was 3.1 versus 3.104. So a quarter of a yard, not even. It's very, very minimal difference. It's less than a tenth total in yards after contact. Yards before contact, where the Cowboys were averaging less than a yard before contact and the Cardinals averaging 2.2. That is a sizable difference and the single biggest difference in these numbers. The schematics were good. And the Cardinals run, and I think you'll see a lot of similar stuff going over from Arizona to Dallas here, a very multiple, diverse, varied run scheme. And I mean that in a positive sense. They ran inside zone 20% of the time. These are all per PFF, by the way. Shout out John Owning for the numbers here. 18% man, 17.5% outside zones. They ran counters 16% of the time, or nearly a 4x difference to the Cowboys we'll get to in a second here. They ran pull lead plays when you got that guard pulling and you're running behind him. They ran powers 6.3%, sneaks and traps and other stuff that isn't nearly as impactful. But they ran 5 different run concepts at least 14% of the time. 5 of them. The Cowboys ran 2. That was inside zone at 31% of the time and outside zone 22.6%. All my slander of the Cowboys tight zone crap that I hated is not what the Cardinals did. Again, I mentioned this on our breaking news show. I had interest in Drew Petzing because I love his run game concepts. Now you're getting, in theory, some of those run game concepts. It's not going to be just tight zone. My expectation here is you will see a far more varied and effective and diverse run game scheme than the Cowboys' self-described tight inside zone, which I called it as a slanderous thing. Now, my guess is you see kind of more of those duo runs. Isn't quite inside zone, more of those man and power stuff. And an outside zone, where the Cardinals did run a good amount as well. And then I think you'll see more counters as the season progresses. They'll get the basics down, then add elements of those counters, which very effective run plays. You can't be all counters. You got to have the thing to counter off of, obviously. But I think you'll see that as the season goes along. Now, I want to emphasize this part too. I do not want to turn into run, pass. I do not want that. It is 2025. We can be more creative than that. I do think this team, and we've mentioned it a lot on the show before, they need to be able to run the ball better, specifically when they are dared to. Not saying become a run first, run heavy, run the ball down everyone's throats, blah, blah, blah team. But if teams are going to keep doing shell coverages against you, a great way to counter that is to run the ball. Cowboys saw a lot of that the past couple seasons, and they weren't really able to run the ball. The schematic changes I think that Klayton Adams will bring can help that. Today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time's got a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. Makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. It is curation designed to make it easier to save more on concerts, comedy, theater, everything else in between. The super deal is the best value for any given event. You will get the most bang for your buck, whether it's Brian Schottenheimer, well, maybe to a Mavs game or a Stars game or a concert, whatever it is. Game Time's got you covered. The Game Time guarantee is this: you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Now look, terms do apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, all guaranteed. I also like the offensive line record, which kind of ties into the run game boost, but also passing game boosts, hopefully, as well. I would argue, relative to their talent, at least their perceived talent of their offensive line, the Cardinals very much outplayed that talent level under Adams' watch and guidance over the course of the past 2 seasons. The pass protection ranks for PFF, just 21st in total snaps. Again, they weren't an overly pass-heavy team. 7th in sacks. They were tied for 6th in hits, 11th in hurries, tied for 4th in total pressures. So PFF kind of combines all of this and factors in boosts for sacks and the total snaps as a factor there, and they ranked Arizona 5th in their efficiency when it came to offensive line pass protection. They played 9 different guys, at least 140 snaps, I think it was. And obviously, Paris Johnson's a first-round pick, but they were getting played of like Jonah Williams played 6 games to have a tackle. They're getting impacts from third round, day 3 guys like Isaiah Adams, Evan Brown, Yelda Froholt has been cast off of 2 teams, and they got good play out of those guys. Position coach probably gets some credit there, right? So hopefully the answer here is yes. But do you believe that Klayton Adams can help the Cowboys offensive line? Y for yes, N for no. Next up, by all accounts I've heard, it does sound like Adams is very well regarded around the NFL. You don't always know this to be true, because especially if it's a negative one, sometimes they're wrong on that. But when the fans and media are down bad over losing a coach, normally means something good. Not always, but it is worth mentioning. And I do want to mention here, Johnny Venerable and Bo Barak, who do really good Cardinals stuff out there on YouTube and podcasts, etc. They plugged their show on losing Adams, opening up with JV going, "Those no good, dirty, filthy, rotten Cowboys stole our best assistant coach. It's a dark day for Cardinals fans. 2 years of quality offensive line play. Is it back to the slums for the Redbirds in the trenches?" Now, Johnny also had this to say. He was phenomenal. This is unequivocally the 2 best years of offensive line play this franchise has had since they moved to Arizona. He did more with less than anybody else. Bonus points, kind of, sort of, too, by the way. Loves hearing that from Cardinals fans / media. Kellen Moore and the Saints staff apparently had interest in adding Klayton Adams as well. And the Cardinals were prepared to lose him to one of those staffs. Cowboys swoop in. Benefits of not waiting, I suppose. I do think he is well regarded. I think all of this stuff matters. So to recap here, why I am on board and why I like the Klayton Adams hire. They're going outside their bubble. They're not doing this nonsense of only hiring people that they know and they're trying new ideas. I think it will help your run game. I think that was proven in Arizona. I think the offensive line in general got better play with the Cardinals than their talent level suggests. Hopefully that applies to the Dallas Cowboys as well. And he does appear to be very well regarded around the NFL by the Cardinals and their fans and the media. And I think those all kind of merge into a positive. At least the process is good. There is no guarantee that hiring Klayton Adams or the entire staff or whatever ends up working. There's no guarantee of that. But the process, and I think the goal they were trying to achieve, I think all of those things were solid. And that bodes well as the Cowboys move forward, as they continue to build out their staff. So I like the path they're heading on here. And before we move on, make sure you guys are subscribed. We'll be back with another video later today. More coaching staff updates. I wouldn't be shocked if someone like the Cardinals assistant offensive line coach, Chris Cook, ends up getting the Cowboys O-line job, which gets rid of football terrorist Mike Solari. Also worth mentioning, we'll go more in depth on it later today because it's worth spending more time on. Tashard Choice, the Texas running backs coach, interviewing for the same job in Dallas. That would be quite the steal by the Cowboys. We'll break that down and more. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out.